told my sister-in-law her babies weren't welcome at the wedding after she changed our original plans, causing a family feud. I'm a 32-year-old woman, and in just 4 months, I'm supposed to marry the love of my life, who's 34. My soon-to-be sister-in-law, Amy, has 3 kids. Her twins will be 12 months old at the time of the wedding, and she also has a 6-year-old son. Before the twins were born, I remember having an honest conversation with Amy. She told me she was actually looking forward to reaching that 12-month milestone precisely because she could finally have at least one child-free evening, let loose, and not have to worry about her kids for once. She explicitly said she didn't want her children at our wedding. That made things easy for me, so I told her how much we would love for her 6-year-old to be our flower boy. We agreed he'd be part of our ceremony, and then a short drive later, he'd rejoin his sisters at home, all watched over by the babysitter while their parents enjoyed the reception. That was the plan, set and clear. But now, out of nowhere, I hear that Amy's shopping for adorable dresses, for the twins, to wear on our wedding day. I'm totally confused. When I ask her why she's shopping for the twins, she seems to have completely forgotten that conversation. Suddenly, she's acting like it's a given that all 3 of her kids will be there. I tried to be gentle, but I reminded her that we only planned for her 6-year-old to attend, not the babies. Honestly, I'm not particularly keen on having the younger kids at the wedding. Now, I'm stuck with my mother-in-law and Amy being upset with both me and my fiancé over this decision. My mother-in-law insists that the whole family should be in the photographer's family portraits because it would be a rare chance to have everyone together, looking their best. Amy, on her part, says, "Your family deserves to be at your wedding." She also reveals that she's uncomfortable having her 6-year-old son attending an event without his baby sisters. Apparently, he's struggling to adjust to having the twins around and is always asking to leave them behind. She doesn't want to encourage that kind of behavior by excluding the twins from the wedding. She tells me flat out that it's all of her kids or none. That was a tense conversation, and I am notoriously conflict avoidant, so I left it unresolved and just stewed about it. My fiancé doesn't want the twins to be there. They tend to draw a huge amount of attention, and he wants our day to be focused on us, not on the youngest members of the family. For me, the kids' attendance isn't make or break, but what really gets to me is feeling completely dismissed by Amy and my mother-in-law. They tried to change our plans behind my back and then guilt-tripped me when I finally said something. Now it's starting to feel like an ultimatum, and the attitude around this makes me want to dig in my heels and push back. But we've tried to compromise. We're having a gathering with all the same people the night before the wedding, plus brunch the morning after. Both events would be perfect for the twins to join the family, get in the photos, and be included as much as they want, but our actual wedding would stay child-free with the exception of our flower boy. Of course, that compromise got completely dismissed. Now I'm just sitting here wondering if I'm totally out of line by saying the twins can't attend the wedding and feeling more upset with how it's been handled than the actual presence of the kids. Update 1. So, FH and I had been invited to the twins' first birthday party this week. Honestly, I knew going in that this was absolutely not the best time or place to dive into a tense topic, specifically, the whole situation about these 2 babies being excluded from our upcoming wedding. Still, the subject just landed in my lap unexpectedly. For some context, just a week earlier, FH had spoken to his Bill, the twins' father, and once again made it clear that the babies weren't invited to our wedding. I wasn't present for that conversation, so I have no idea how it went down, what was said, how it was received, or if things got awkward. Fast forward to the birthday party. We're all gathered around the dinner table, the mood light enough, when FH steps away for a minute. That's when my Sil zeroes in on me, her tone gentle but strained. She says, "I'd like to check with you about what FH said about the wedding. He told us the babies weren't invited to the ceremony or the reception. So, is that right?" I told her straight up, "Yeah, that's our plan." And right after, I made a quick escape. I suddenly felt the need to busy myself in another room away from the tension that settled. Meanwhile, FH sits back down and apparently lays down the law with his family regarding this and a few other ongoing issues. The conversation must have been heavy, because not long after, we ended up getting ready to leave. Before we headed out, Sil pulled me aside and said quietly, "I respect that this is what you want, but I am really upset." The guilt hit me hard, knowing I'd left her feeling genuinely hurt. But alongside that, I couldn't help but feel a bit annoyed and genuinely confused by her shock. We had already gone over this a month ago. Why did it seem like brand new information now? Update 2. Just 4 days before my wedding, instead of feeling the excitement I always pictured, I'm utterly drained. Let me set the scene. My future husband and I have been crystal clear for months. His sister's 1-year-old twins would not be attending our wedding. It's not like we haven't explained ourselves a dozen times. But his mother and his sister, their grandmother and mother, just refused to let it go, constantly twisting the conversation as if they've never heard it before. My future husband's grandmother, their mother, arrived 2 days ago to stay with us and join in the pre-wedding festivities. Because we had a guest, we actually sat down for dinner at the table instead of our usual routine of eating in front of the TV, so the evening already felt a little different. Dinner finished, and there was this lull, a pleasant chat about logistics, which guest was sleeping where, who needed to be picked up from the airport, just ordinary things. Then, as if she'd been waiting for the right dramatic moment, my Mill looked straight at us and said, "One more thing. What can I do to make you more comfortable with the babies being there? I felt my pulse surge. Of course she'd bring it up in front of everyone, including her own mother, as if this time was going to be the time she finally wore us down. I did not entertain the idea. We are not comfortable with the babies being there, I said, firm as I could muster. She immediately pivoted, pelting me with questions about our wedding timeline, scribbling notes about when we'd be taking photos, basically angling for a loophole. I told her, we said the babies cannot come. That includes the entire time we will not be there. She pushed, I'm just trying to find a way for the babies to meet everyone. Everyone's been saying they're so excited to meet these bubs, and I'm sick of having the same conversation with them all. Even now, I'm amazed by her logic. I said, you're just trying to find a way to get what you want at our wedding. The babies had a first birthday recently, you could have invited people to that. Their mother doesn't work, she's had an entire year to introduce these babies to anyone who wants to meet them. You don't have to wait for a wedding or a funeral for a family gathering. She shot back, that's just it, it's a family wedding. And I cut right through, no, it's our wedding. The family is invited to celebrate with us, eat, have some cake, and dance if they want to. That's it. Meanwhile, the grandmother kept jumping in, making the emotional play. These are your nieces. You're having a dog there, but not your sister's children. The 6-year-old wants his sisters there. She meant my nephew, who's 6 and apparently pulling heartstrings left and right. I didn't budge. He's 6. He doesn't get whatever he wants. Back and forth and back again, until I'd had it. I stood abruptly from the table and declared the conversation over, storming off before saying something I'd regret. My future husband? He was right there with me, echoing everything I said, unwavering in his support. 4 more days to go, I can only imagine how much more they'll try to push. FML. Update 3. We got married. After all the chaos and drama leading up to it, our wedding day finally arrived, and honestly, it was incredible. Despite everything, the atmosphere was perfect, the night unforgettable, and for that brief window, the stress melted away. But the week itself? Oh, every day felt like a new adventure I didn't ask for. It started on Tuesday. I walked into my own kitchen and there she was, my sister-in-law. No warning, no key, not that I gave her one, and definitely no text to say she was swinging by. She finished whatever she came to do, and after she left, I sent her a really polite text. I told her, hey, if you ever need to drop by and see my car in the driveway, just knock so I can greet you at the door. Apparently, that didn't go over well. From that point on, all our communication took on this weird, ultra-formal corporate tone. She even called me a stranger and said I wasn't family. Then on Thursday, right before our pre-wedding barbecue, I found out from someone else that my mother-in-law, father-in-law, grandmother-in-law, sister-in-law, aunts, and all their kids would not be coming to our house for the barbecue, which we had heavily prepped and planned for over 6 months. Instead, they announced they'd be holding their own party at Sill's house, a belated birthday for a family member, supposedly. I couldn't let that pass. The barbecue was supposed to be their big family reunion. Honestly, the whole thing was planned with them in mind. All the food was ready, and honestly, my patience was at its limit. We pushed back hard, they finally relented, but their reluctance was obvious. They arrived late, and what do you know, they weren't hungry at all. Turns out, they'd already had their lunch gathering at Sill's place. The seating was a disaster, there weren't enough chairs, so my family and his ended up split up between inside and outside. Here's the kicker, I checked my cameras later and saw they had taken the extra chairs to Sill's for their lunch and never bothered to bring them back. As if that hadn't already set the mood, the extended family on his side, who'd previously agreed to help us set up the blank venue the day before the wedding, never showed. Why? Because they'd spent all their energy at that lunch. My husband and I ended up doing everything ourselves. We had expected a dozen eager helpers, but no, it was just us two. No babies at the venue, for the record, though they were invited beforehand to join for family photos, with a professional photographer and everything, but they simply chose not to come. The flower kid? Total disaster performance, but honestly, I was still really proud of him. He looked fantastic in his little outfit, so at least one thing was adorable about that setup. As for Sill, she flat out refused to join the family photos until one of the aunts literally shoved her into place. Mother-in-law didn't speak a single word to me all day, not hello, not congratulations, not even a see ya. The babysitter we organized got sick, so right after the ceremony, Sill grabbed the flower boy and left to watch the rest of the kids at home. Her husband didn't leave, though. He spent the entire night mingling, loudly telling everyone about how he wants to open up his marriage, and that Sill had given him permission to have a girlfriend. That was a surprise turn. Besides him, the rest of my husband's family ate dinner and then left immediately afterward. Not one goodbye, even before the speeches, first dance, or the cake cutting. Later, I got a text from Mill. Her excuse? They'd bailed on their only son's wedding after dinner because she was cold. It was 21 degrees Celsius, maybe 69 Fahrenheit. I guess that was just too chilly for familial decency. I'm sure there will be more wild updates to come. Update 4. We got back from a 2-night mini-moon with sand still in our shoes and the kind of sleep-shocked happiness I wanted to bottle. I opened my phone to a brand new group chat titled Family Wedding Photos, Complete. My Mill had added everyone from her side, plus our photographer's business account, which made my stomach drop until I realized she'd just typed the name wrong and tagged the wrong person. Her first message: since there were no photos with the babies, I've organized a little reshoot on Sunday. Botanical Gardens. 3 p.m. Bring your dress. I've got the gazebo permit. I was halfway through typing no, when she followed it with, hair and makeup have been arranged for both of you. Consider this your wedding gift from us. Then a photo popped up, 2 tiny white dresses laid out on her dining table. I could feel my husband's jaw set from across the room. He wrote, we won't be attending a reshoot. We had our wedding. We took our photos. Please stop. Silence for 2 minutes. Then she came back with, I'm not asking. This is for family. We all missed out because of your rules. She sent a heavy paragraph about posterity and legacy, and how we'd regret not having a complete album when everyone was gone. Then she tagged me specifically and wrote, you of all people should understand. I said, we're not doing this. She replied, then we will do it without you. They did. Sunday afternoon, my phone lit with tagged photos on Facebook and then in the group chat right after, my Sil in a pale lace dress that wasn't white until you put her under a canopy of white wisteria and a filter. The twins in their little dresses. My nephew in his suit, holding a bouquet. Mill beaming in the middle. Phil with both thumbs up like he'd just closed on a house. The caption, round 2 with everyone, followed by a heart and 2 ring emojis. For the record, they had a cake, small, 2 tiers, clearly store-bought, but they cut it with linked arms. Someone had dragged a Bluetooth speaker out, and in one of the videos, my Meal was slow dancing with my Phil while Mill yelled, first dance. I watched my husband press the heel of his hand into his brow and say nothing for a good 30 seconds. We wouldn't have known about the cake, except the next day the venue sent me an invoice holding our bond because 2 velvet lounge chairs and 3 brass candlesticks were missing from the warehouse count, and there was frosting on the underside of a rented runner that matched exactly the little smears in their garden video. I scrolled back through the photos, and there they were, the pink velvet chair from our lounge corner, living its worst life in the grass, the candlesticks flanking a Coles cake. I actually laughed. It wasn't funny, but it was either that or scream. I forwarded the invoice to Mill and Sil with a simple, please return the items or transfer the amount by Friday. These were rentals, we're being charged. Mill came back with, those were decorations we assumed you were gifting to the family. They were in the boot after the reception. I said, they were in the boot of your car because you took them. We need them back. Sil chimed in, formal as a contract, we will not be paying for your choice of decor. Your failure to provide enough seating meant items were moved off-site. The matter is now closed. The seating line almost got me, considering we'd watched security footage of them loading our backyard chairs into her trunk for their pre-barbecue lunch. My husband wrote, return the chairs and candlesticks, Amy. No answer. Then an hour later, a car slowed in front of our house. I watched from the window as my Phil and one of the aunts hauled the velvet chairs onto our lawn and left them there, bare on the footpath like a curbside pickup. One had a dark ring of icing on the back, and both legs on the other were scratched like someone dragged it across brick. A grocery bag with the candlesticks was tied to the handle with a ribbon in our wedding colors, like it was meant to be charming. I took a photo with a timestamp and sent it to the venue. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. My husband dragged the chairs inside, looked at the gouges, and said, very calmly, we're taking them to the hire company and then I'm calling a lawyer. While all that was happening, a bridesmaid sent me a screenshot. My Bill, the one who spent our reception explaining his open marriage plan to anyone within earshot, had slid into her DMs at 1 a.m. the night after the wedding with, hey gorgeous, loved catching up X. 2 minutes later, we're very modern. She didn't respond. Another message after she left him on read, Amy's fine with it. I put my phone down, sat on the kitchen floor, and just stared at the cabinets for a minute. Then I forwarded it to my husband. He sent it to his sister with, this is what he's doing. You deserve better. Sil called immediately. The call went to my phone because my husband was driving the chairs back. I let it ring 3 times, then answered. She didn't even say hello. She said, stay out of my marriage. I said, then tell your husband to stay out of my friends. She started crying so hard she couldn't get words out, then snapped back to corporate and said, noted. She hung up. 10 minutes after that, my Gmeal arrived at our doorstep in a cardigan and pearls like she was about to conduct a church service. No text. Just a knock, and there she was on the mat. I'm here to collect my grandson, she said, as if my husband belonged to lost property. I told her he was out. She lifted her chin and said, this is going to cost you. You have shamed us. We gave you a family and you gave us a bill. She had a sheet of paper in her hand, printed out. Itemized charges for our lunch because you failed to provide hospitality. She had put a dollar value next to fuel and lunches for 8. I caught myself smiling because it was so absurd, and she thought it was a win. I said, no, and closed the door very, very gently. That night, my husband sent a single message to the group, we're done for now. Return anything else you took. If we get any more invoices or fees because of your choices, we'll see you in small claims. Do not come to our house unannounced again. Do not add us to any more group chats. Mill sent back, so we're strangers now, and a photo of the twins in those dresses, just to twist the knife. Sil added, understood, and left the chat. Camille reacted to my husband's message with a sad face, then a thumbs up, which somehow felt like a curse and a resignation at the same time. The chairs were accepted by the hire company with a note about damage. We'll be paying for that. My husband filed the small claims paperwork for the amount, attached the screenshots, the videos, the photos of frosting, the group chat with round 2. He did it at our dining table with the dog asleep on his feet and the smell of leftover wedding flowers slowly turning from sweet to honey to just a little bit tired. Today, a package turned up on our porch with no sender listed. Inside was our guest book, which we had thought someone had packed with the cards. It had been filled out by my side and a handful from his, then a blank gap where his family would have been, then one entry in my Mill's handwriting that read, "May you learn what family means." Underneath it, someone had pressed a smear of cake into the page and tried to wipe it away, leaving a pale, sticky circle that had pulled up the ink from the words around it. For the record, we mailed our thanks. We mailed them to everyone, including people who left early because they were cold. We mailed one to the babysitter who got sick. We mailed one to the cousin who showed up at 7 a.m. on setup day with a thermos of coffee and refused to leave until the last candle was blown out. We did what we said we'd do. And tonight, we're going to watch terrible TV and eat the top of our cake out of the box with forks because it tastes like lemon and sugar and something clean and new, and because the two of us are very, very married, no reshoot required. Update 5. The email subject line was urgent, unauthorized use of my work, and for half a second I thought we were being sued again. It was our photographer. She'd woken up to 6 one-star reviews from burner accounts, all using the exact same phrasing about hates babies and anti-family policy, plus a public comment on her Instagram accusing her of refusing to include infants in albums as a clause. She attached screenshots. The usernames were some version of Anti for Real and Family First 1970 with 0 posts and the same sunflower profile picture. And then, the kicker, our photographer sent a separate screenshot of an email she'd received at midnight from my mill, a paragraph beginning with "Consider this a formal demand," instructing her to take the raw files from our wedding, and composite the twins tastefully into the larger family photographs, with notes like twin A should be on hip and twin B can be on the ground with petals. She ended it with, "If you do not comply within 7 business days I will be escalating through fair trading and my solicitor." Our photographer is a tiny woman who wears black linen and eats pastry during shoots like it's oxygen. She called me and said, in the calmest voice I've ever heard, "I have never been asked to Photoshop babies into a wedding." Then, I'm filing a takedown on the reshoot album they tagged me in. Also, I'm making a cuppa. By lunchtime, the reshoot videos were gone off Facebook with the content removed due to copyright banner. 10 minutes later my mill sent a text to my husband, "Happy now? You've humiliated your mother and a small business owner." He replied with a screenshot of her formal demand with the subject line "For your solicitor," and left it at that. Small claims set a date faster than I expected. We went in with a folder and 2 pens like we were about to sit an exam. They showed up as a unit, Mill in a cream suit that looked suspiciously like the jacket she wore to our wedding, Camille in pearls, Phil in a tie with tiny beer mugs, and Amy, pale and tight around the mouth, holding a USB drive. When the clerk asked what it was, Mill said, "Evidence that the wedding was completed," and handed over a thumb drive marked round 2 final. The judge didn't plug it in. We put down the hire contract. We put down photos of the chairs on our lawn, the frosting, the group chat with round 2 with everyone. Mill tried to hand the judge a printed invoice for pre-wedding hospitality, and he actually chuckled, just once, before telling her that wasn't how any of this worked. I watched the moment my Mill realized she wasn't going to litigate feelings, her smile switched off like a lamp. Judgment for us. They had 30 days to pay or risk enforcement. When we stepped into the hallway, Mill told my husband, without looking at me, "You've torn this family into pieces for a rule," then gave me a look I can only describe as a slow, disappointed blessing. Amy didn't look at anyone. Phil said, "So we can't just give you a slab of beer and call it even?" Which nearly made my husband laugh out loud in the courthouse. I thought that would be the headline of the week. It was not. On Wednesday, a woman from the local paper called to confirm our vow renewal announcement. She read the caption over the phone, "An intimate garden ceremony surrounded by their closest family, featuring their darling nieces and nephew. Photos by, photographer's tag." I asked what photos. She said, "The ones you sent." I asked her to forward the email. It was from an address with our last name and a dot and the number 1. The attached photos were from the reshoot, with the photographer's name tagged in the corner like it was a watermark. I told her, as evenly as I could, "Please don't run that. That's not us." The article went live anyway on the church newsletter page. Mill had scanned it and put it on her Facebook with "Now it's official," like she was stamping a passport. My phone pinged with congratulations from people we hadn't seen since high school. My husband called his grandmother and said, "Take it down." She said, "We don't take down blessings." That was the same afternoon I got a DM from our florist, a photo of my Mill in the shop, holding a copy of our bouquet and asking for our exact recipe because she was recreating for a family do-over. The florist wrote, "Do you want me to?" I said, "Don't sell my bouquet to my mother-in-law." She didn't. Thursday night, my bridesmaid sent me another screenshot from my bill, a longer message this time beginning, "I see you didn't respond last time, I think we got off on the wrong foot, and ending with we're an ethical non-monog couple. He'd sent it to 2 of the bridesmaids and a cousin. 5 minutes later, my phone lit up with a text from Amy that said, I need somewhere to stay tonight. You know that feeling when the whole house inhales? That's what it felt like when I opened the door, and she was on the step with the twins in their pajamas, the 6-year-old clutching a pillow and a plastic dinosaur, and no suitcase. She had on a hoodie and slippers and eyes like she hadn't slept in a week. She stepped inside and said, he gave my number out without asking, like it was a confession and a defense at the same time. I led her to the guest room. My husband went to the car with the 6-year-old to get his school bag from the back seat. He hadn't brought it. The dog did that careful, excited shuffle he does when he knows there are babies and you have to whisper, gentle, and he takes it seriously like it's his job. After I got the twins down in a pack and play we keep for my cousin's kids, Amy sat at our kitchen table and put both hands flat on it. He thinks because he asked once and I said no and then I said we can talk about it, that means yes to every woman forever. Her voice broke. Mum says if I leave him she'll keep the kids on weekends so I can sort myself out, and then she said, or you can make it easy and just go back. She looked at the ceiling like it might answer. I'm not going back tonight. I boiled water even though nobody wanted tea. She said, very small, I'm sorry about the chairs. Mum said everything after a wedding is community property. I didn't think. I just didn't want to fight her. She winced when she said mum, like the word itself was a bruise. I told her I heard her, that we had the invoice sorted, that the court was done. She nodded and picked at the edge of a placemat like she could undo weaving. At 11, Mill called my husband and let it ring for a full minute. He put the phone face down on the counter. At 11:06, her car headlights lit our front room in a clean sweep. 3 sharp knocks. My husband opened the door with the chain on. She didn't get dramatic. She just said, in that sing-song voice, I'm here for my grandson. He said, he's asleep, and she tried to push the door, and the chain clinked and held. Amy? She called over his shoulder. You can't take him, as if we were the thieves. Amy stood in the hall where Mill couldn't see her and said, Mum, go home. Mill went very still, chin up the way Meal does, and said, I hope you like strangers, and walked down our path with that high-shouldered march like she was carrying banners. The next morning the school office called to ask why the 6-year-old's grandma had tried to sign him out early without being on the list. They were crisp but kind about it. I said, he's fine. He'll be dropped off like normal. My husband took him with a hand on the back of his little neck and came home with a painting of a volcano and an extra wobbly smile. The twins ate banana like it was their first real food. The house felt like a house. Midday, a letter arrived by registered post. The envelope was from a law office we both recognized from real estate signs. Inside was a witness notice from Gmeal's solicitor that she had amended testamentary documents to reflect a change in familial standing, which is the most poetic way I've ever read about being cut out. There was an attachment, a photocopy of our wedding invitation with void stamped across it in red. My husband read it, blinked twice, and said, do you want the last slice of lemon or the chocolate? In the same tone, like the only sensible work was to decide about cake. Amy texted her husband and said she and the kids were safe and that he could pick up a bag from the porch. He arrived, red-faced and puffing, and stood on the mat asking if we'd seen his apology draft to the bridesmaids. My husband shut the door before he got to the word modern. He hasn't stopped texting since. At 3, a cousin messaged saying there was chatter about kidnapping in the family chat. We weren't in it because my husband had left after his were done. At 5, Mill posted a photo of a bouquet twin to mine with the caption, you can't erase family. We bloom. The florist commented a single leaf emoji and then deleted it. That night, after the 6-year-old was in bed with his plastic dinosaur tucked under his chin and the twins were a sweet tangle in the guest room, Amy came back to the kitchen with her hair up and a hoodie that said run the world and asked, without looking at me, if I change the locks, will that make me the bad guy? I told her I couldn't answer that for her and she nodded, like that was the only answer she could have received. She took a breath and said, Mum said my marriage would only be real when the family had a picture with the babies. That's why all of this. I believed her for like 5 minutes and now I feel like I can't hear myself think. There was a quiet then, the kind with space in it. The dog snored. The house hummed. My husband put a slice of lemon cake on a plate and slid it across the table. He said, you can stay as long as you need. She put both hands around the plate and looked like someone had told her a secret. I don't know what happens next. Maybe they pay the judgment. Maybe we finally get left alone. Maybe there'll be a third ceremony for the family with a Coles mud cake and a new set of stolen candlesticks. And here comes the sun on a Bluetooth speaker until the battery dies. Tonight I'm pouring milk into a sippy cup and there are little girls in our guest room breathing in that hiccupy way babies breathe when they've cried themselves out, and there's a boy in the next room dreaming of volcanoes, and the only photograph that matters is the one of my husband in our kitchen, barefoot, cutting cake with his sister at midnight like we've always done this, like this is ordinary, like this is family.